Welcome back. You're watching ED Inside. The Indian economy is going through a slowdown and the blame game between policymakers and the captains of industry is in full swing. In the process, India's GDP growth seems unlikely to return to the pre-crisis rate of 9% plus anytime soon. So will things get worse before they get any better? Nikhil Sivadas finds out.
It's checkmate for the Indian economy, with growth slowing down, stubbornly high inflation and a depreciating rupee.
There has been a policy stalemate. A number of structural reforms have to be undertaken in order to make sure that potential growth becomes higher so that India can grow faster without causing higher inflation.
Reforms are the need of the hour.
We do need some strong signals on key reform areas like power. We need some steps, some initiatives on infrastructure. And if I think we get this combination of signals and steps, you will see this economy turning around very rapidly and going back to the 8% growth track that we were on.
But that track seems to be really far away right now, because increased economic uncertainty has taken a heavy toll on investments in the country. Foreign institutional investors have reportedly withdrawn nearly 2,500 crore rupees last year. That's not all. Even though cumulative FDI inflows between April and November last year were $22.8 billion as compared to $19.4 billion in the full fiscal of 2011, FDI outflows have been on the rise. That is thanks to the rising cost of capital and a sense of complete policy paralysis.
Most worries today are around land and environment. Maybe a third one is mineral rights. If we get these three things fixed, the country will be back on track.
Picture this. Interest rates in India have risen 13 times last year, making the cost of corporate borrowings rise by nearly 4 percentage points. Simultaneously, several key sectors such as mining, telecom, power, infrastructure and retail that require long-term capital are in limbo. That in turn has taken a toll on India's banking system, which finds itself saddled with loans that are degrading in quality. But the worst may not be over. According to rating agency CRISIL, bank NPAs will rise to 150,000 crore rupees by March 2012. That's nearly 3 times what it was 3 years ago. So restructuring assets and ensuring a cushion against worsening asset quality is sure to be a priority for banks and the RBI this year. But the RBI has cautioned that this can only happen if the economy stabilizes. And the regulator is doing all it can to ensure just that.
We could expect a reversal of monetary tightening. We are more mindful of growth, and the growth inflation balancing equation will certainly be different in 2012 from what it was in 2011.
But that alone may not be enough. According to the World Bank's Doing Business report, it takes at least a month to finish the procedures to start a business in India. Getting permits for construction takes another 227 days. But that's nothing when compared to the 1,420 days it takes to enforce contracts in the country. Little wonder then that India is ranked 132nd out of 183 countries in terms of ease of doing business. To change this, India needs to improve its interministerial coordination on contentious approvals.
Clearance of projects, land acquisition has to do with state issues. So a lot will depend on which state it is in and which political party is there.
That brings us to the acute need for good and effective governance. To be fair, the government has tried hard, and 17 of a total of 30 bills introduced in the recent winter session of Parliament were passed. The bad news, though, was that critical bills on insurance, land acquisition and rehabilitation and mining, and key policy measures like the goods and services tax and FDI in retail hit the opposition roadblock.
Trying our best to remove the logjam, but we are not the only party and we do not create logjam ourselves. We always want, we are ready for discussion.
सरकार के अपने घर के अंदर भी विरोध पैदा हो गया, तो वक्ता दर वक्ता सबने फैसले का विरोध करते हुए, फैसले को वापस लेने की मांग करते हुए ये प्रश्न जरूर पूछा कि इतना उद्वेलन था संसद में, फिर आपने ये क्यों किया?
While the political class has been at war, India's fiscal condition seems to be weakening. Fiscal deficit has been on an unprecedented rise and is expected to be over 4.6% of GDP this financial year. All thanks to subsidies which swallow up nearly 1.44 lakh crore rupees annually. The food subsidy bill of 2011-12 is likely to add another 80,000 crore rupees to this number. With tax revenues looking sluggish, the government has resorted to expanding its borrowing plan. It borrowed 52,000 crore rupees last year and is likely to borrow another 40,000 crore rupees this year. What's worse is that the government has warned that it may not be able to meet its divestment target of 40,000 crore rupees this fiscal.
It's going to be very difficult. So I'm not confident on the full target of 40,000. I'm not confident of that.
The biggest concern is the country's widening trade deficit. Simply put, India is earning fewer dollars than it is spending on imports. And unless this gap is made up by inflows into the stock markets, industry or bank deposits, the rupee will remain under pressure. The rupee was the worst performing Asian currency last year and may lose more ground in the months to come. Nomura and Macquarie expect the rupee to reach 55 in 2012, whereas Bank of America, Merrill Lynch and CLSA see the Indian currency going down further and touching 58 to 60 to the dollar. A weak currency can have a catastrophic impact because it devalues savings and forces interest rates to go up, slowing everything down in the economy. Silver lining is that despite all this, India is not close to having a systemic crisis just yet. All that is required now is some cleaning up.
Cobwebs in the policy environment have to be removed very quickly. That's number one, and that's the priority for the government now.
But the government is just a facilitator. India Inc. needs to do its bit too in helping build Brand India.
Sure it does. So is there a middle path that government and industry can take to solve this crisis? Adi Godrej, President-designate of the CII and Chairman of the Godrej Group, joins us to talk about that in just a bit. Stay with us.